Chosen one, stop what you are doing and come into stillness for a second. This is not something you play in the background while your mind is scattered. This is not something you half listen to while your attention is divided. There is a reason your path crossed this message at this exact moment, and it is not random. You have been moving through your days feeling like something is different, like something is shifting around you that you cannot fully explain. And instead of ignoring that feeling, you need to lean into it right now. Because what you have been sensing is not confusion, it is awareness waking up. Before anything else, I need you to do something simple but intentional. Take a breath and settle your mind. And if you believe that God speaks in ways beyond what is seen, then let this message meet you where you are. If this speaks to you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe to The Chosen Star, and commit to growing in your awareness, because what you are about to hear is not for distraction, it is for direction. You have spent a long time thinking that everything happening around you could be explained by logic alone. You have told yourself that the timing of events, the people who showed up, the doors that opened and closed were just part of life. But lately, that explanation has not been enough. Because things have been aligning in ways that feel too precise to be accidental. Moments have been happening that carry weight, like something unseen is influencing the outcome. And deep down, you know it. Here's the truth most people overlook. Just because something is not visible does not mean it is not active. Just because something does not announce itself loudly does not mean it is not present. God has never been limited to what your physical eyes can confirm, and in the same way, the help He assigns to your life does not always arrive in obvious ways. It moves quietly. It moves consistently. It moves with purpose. You have been protected in ways you did not notice at the time. You have been redirected when you thought you were being delayed. You have been covered in moments where things could have gone completely differently, and only later did you look back and realize that something stepped in on your behalf. Something made sure that what was meant to harm you did not succeed. Something made sure you kept moving forward when everything around you suggested you should have fallen apart. And you kept calling it coincidence. But chosen one, there comes a point where coincidence becomes too consistent to ignore. There comes a point where patterns begin to reveal intention, and there comes a point where your spirit starts recognizing what your mind has been trying to dismiss. You are reaching that point now. You are starting to see that your life has been guided more than you realized. This does not mean that you have been exempt from challenges. In fact, your journey may have felt heavier than most. You have faced resistance, you have encountered opposition, you have walked through seasons where nothing made sense and everything felt uncertain. But you are still here, and not just surviving, but still moving, still growing, still becoming. That alone should tell you something. Because if everything that came against you had full permission to succeed, you would not be where you are right now. There has been help. There has been covering, there has been protection that you did not see, but you experienced. And now your awareness is catching up to what has always been true. You are not walking alone. And the reason this matters is because awareness changes how you move. When you start to recognize that God has placed protection around your life, you stop operating from fear. You stop second-guessing every step. You stop feeling like everything depends on your strength alone. You begin to move with a different kind of confidence, not arrogance, but assurance, not control, but trust. And that is where this message is taking you. Because there are signs, not loud, overwhelming displays, but consistent, subtle confirmations that something greater is present with you daily. And once you begin to recognize them, you cannot unsee them. Your perspective shifts, your faith deepens, your sensitivity sharpens. The first sign has already been happening to you, even if you did not fully understand it at the time. There have been moments where everything around you should have overwhelmed you, situations that would normally bring anxiety, pressure, or fear, circumstances that should have left you restless and unsettled, but instead, something unexpected happened. You felt calm. Not because the situation changed immediately, but because something inside you settled without explanation. That kind of peace does not come from logic. It does not come from control. It does not come from having all the answers. It comes from knowing, deep within you, that you are not facing what you are facing alone. And you may have brushed it off. You may have told yourself you were just coping better. You may have assumed it was emotional strength, but it was more than that. It was covering. It was reassurance. It was a quiet signal that you were being supported in ways you could not physically see. That peace was not random. And once you begin to recognize it, you start to notice something else. The way things begin to align around you, the way timing starts to feel intentional, the way certain doors close just before something better opens, the way delays end up protecting you from outcomes you would not have chosen if you had seen the full picture. At first, it can feel frustrating. You wonder why things are not happening when you expect them to. You question the pauses. You question the redirections. But later, when you look back, you see it clearly. You see that what felt like a setback was actually positioning. You see that what felt like a missed opportunity was actually protection. And slowly, your perspective changes. You stop rushing what is not ready. You stop forcing what does not align. You start trusting that timing is not working against you, but for you. That even when you do not understand the sequence, there is intention behind it. And this is where your awareness begins to deepen, because you are no longer just reacting to life, you are observing it differently. You are paying attention to the details. You are noticing the patterns. You are beginning to sense that something is guiding your steps in ways you cannot fully explain, but you can feel. And this is only the beginning of what you are starting to recognize. Because the more aware you become, the more you will start to see that help does not always come in the ways you expect. Sometimes it shows up through people you did not plan to meet. Sometimes it appears in moments that seem ordinary on the surface, but carry unusual impact. Sometimes it arrives just when you are about to give up, just when you think you have reached your limit. And when it happens, it feels almost too precise to dismiss. You have experienced that before, and you will begin to understand it differently now. But before we go deeper, I need you to stay with this. Do not rush ahead mentally. Let this settle, because what you are beginning to see is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to ground you. You are covered, you are guided, and you are more supported than you have allowed yourself to believe. And what comes next will open your eyes even further. Chosen one, as your awareness deepens, something else begins to shift inside you. And this is where many people get confused, because what you are experiencing now is not just external alignment, it is internal awakening. You are starting to notice that your sensitivity has increased. You pick up on things faster. You sense when something is not right, even when there is no visible evidence. You feel drawn to certain decisions without being able to fully explain why. And at times, this can feel overwhelming if you do not understand what is happening. But this is not confusion. This is discernment developing. You are no longer navigating life only through what you see. You are learning to pay attention to what you feel in your spirit. And that shift changes everything, because there are moments when the guidance you need will not come through loud announcements. It will come through subtle impressions, a quiet nudge, a sudden knowing, a deep inner check that tells you to move, to wait, or to step back. And when you ignore it, you feel it immediately, that discomfort, that inner resistance, that sense that something is off, not because anything obvious has happened yet, but because your spirit already recognized what your eyes have not caught up to. This is one of the ways you are being guided. And as this grows, you will also begin to notice something else. The right people seem to appear at the right time, not always permanently, but purposefully. Someone says something you needed to hear. Someone shows up with help you did not ask for but deeply needed. Someone crosses your path and shifts your direction without even realizing the role they played. And it may seem ordinary on the surface, but the timing carries weight. There is a reason you have encountered certain individuals at very specific moments in your life. Not all of them were meant to stay. Not all of them were meant to be understood fully. But many of them were part of how God ensured you received what you needed when you needed it. And here's what is important. Sometimes help does not announce itself as something extraordinary. Sometimes it comes through people who seem completely unaware of the role they are playing in your life. They are simply being themselves, but their presence at that moment becomes exactly what you needed. And once you begin to see this clearly, you stop taking these encounters lightly. You start recognizing that your life is being supported in ways that go beyond your personal effort. Now listen closely, because this next part is something you have likely experienced but did not fully understand. There have been moments when you are about to make a decision, take a step, or go in a direction that felt right at first, but something inside you paused you. Not fear, but a deeper hesitation, a quiet interruption that made you reconsider. And maybe you didn't listen immediately, maybe you tried to push through it, but that feeling did not leave. That was not doubt, that was guidance. And on the other side of that, there have also been moments where you felt a sudden boldness rise up in you, a strength that did not match your previous hesitation, a clarity that cut through your uncertainty, a courage that allowed you to move forward without overthinking every possible outcome. That kind of boldness is not something you manufacture on your own. It is given. It rises when you are aligned. It appears when you are being directed to move forward with confidence instead of hesitation. And this is where many people miss what is happening in their lives. They think they are just becoming more confident or more cautious depending on the situation. But what is really happening is that they are being guided differently in different moments, held back when necessary, pushed forward when required. And when you begin to recognize this pattern, your trust deepens. You stop fighting every pause. You stop questioning every push. You start flowing with it, not passively, but with awareness. You begin to understand that not every delay is rejection, and not every open door is meant for you to walk through immediately. Now, there is another layer to this that you cannot ignore. You have been protected from things you never saw coming. There have been close calls, moments where something almost went wrong, but did not. Situations where you could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, but something shifted, a delay, a distraction, a change of plan. Something small that ended up making a significant difference. At the time, it may have seemed insignificant, but later, when you reflect on it, you realize how close things were to going differently. That is not luck. That is protection. And the more you become aware of it, the more grateful you become, not just for what went right, but for what never had the chance to go wrong. Because some of the greatest acts of protection in your life are the ones you will never fully see. Now let this settle deeply within you. You are not navigating this life unsupported. You are not figuring everything out on your own. There is help assigned to you that operates beyond what you can physically confirm. And the signs of that help have been present all along. But awareness is what allows you to recognize it. And as your awareness increases, something else begins to happen. Your faith becomes more grounded, not based on what you hope might be true, but based on what you have already experienced. You begin to trust not just in what God can do, but in what He has already been doing consistently in your life. And this changes how you move forward. Because instead of constantly questioning if you are alone, you begin to move with the understanding that you are supported. Instead of reacting out of fear, you begin to respond with confidence. Instead of feeling uncertain about every step, you begin to trust the process, even when you do not have all the details. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times have you been helped at the exact moment you needed it? How many times have you been redirected away from something that later proved to be wrong for you? How many times have you felt peace when you should have been overwhelmed? And how many times have you escaped situations that could have ended differently? These are not isolated moments. These are patterns. And once you recognize them as patterns, you begin to understand that something greater has been walking with you all along. So here is what I want you to do right now. Engage with this, not passively, but intentionally. In the comments, share one moment where you know you were protected or guided in a way you could not explain. Not just for interaction, but because when you acknowledge these moments, your awareness sharpens even more. And as you do that, something inside you will begin to settle. A deeper confidence, a stronger trust, a clearer understanding that your life is not left to chance, because it never was. And what you are about to understand next will take this awareness even further, from recognition into activation. Chosen one, now everything begins to come together. Because awareness without response leaves power unused, and recognition without action keeps you at the surface of what was meant to transform you deeply. You were not brought to this understanding just to notice signs and move on. You were brought here to respond, to align, to walk differently because of what you now know. And this is where many people hesitate, not because they lack faith, but because they are unsure of how to live in what they have discerned. But this is simpler than you think, and at the same time, deeper than you expected. It starts with attention. Not distracted attention, not occasional awareness, but intentional, consistent sensitivity to what is happening within you and around you. Because once you begin to recognize that you are being guided, you can no longer afford to move carelessly. You cannot keep ignoring what you feel and expect clarity to increase. You cannot dismiss those inner checks and still expect to walk in alignment.
You have to slow down enough to notice. And I know that is difficult in a world that constantly pushes you to move faster, decide quicker, react immediately. But your strength is not in rushing. Your strength is in alignment. Your advantage is not speed. Your advantage is clarity. So you begin by creating space. Moments in your day where everything becomes quiet, not just externally, but internally, where you are not consuming information, not scrolling endlessly, not filling your mind with noise, because guidance becomes clearer when your spirit is not competing with constant distraction. And in that quiet, something begins to sharpen. You start to recognize the difference between emotional reactions and spiritual direction. You begin to separate fear from discernment. You start to understand when something is pulling you out of alignment and when something is leading you deeper into purpose. And once you can distinguish that clearly, your decisions begin to change. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop forcing connections that no longer feel right. You stop pursuing paths that drain you, even if they look appealing on the outside. And instead, you begin to move with intention. Not perfect, but aware. Not rushed, but directed. Now this is where your faith becomes practical. Because it is one thing to believe that you are guided, it is another thing to act like it. And acting like it means trusting what you feel even when you cannot fully explain it to others. It means stepping back when something feels off, even if everyone else is moving forward. It means walking through doors that open with peace, even if you do not see the full picture yet. This is not blind movement. This is aligned movement. And the more you practice this, the more confident you become, not in yourself alone, but in the guidance you are receiving. You begin to notice that when you listen, things flow differently. When you ignore, things feel forced. When you align, things settle into place with a kind of ease that does not require constant struggle. Now listen closely, because this next step is where transformation becomes consistent. Gratitude. Not surface-level appreciation, but intentional acknowledgement of the help you have already received. Because when you begin to recognize how much you have been guided, protected, and supported, something shifts in your posture. You stop moving like everything depends solely on your effort. You begin to move with humility, with awareness, with a deeper sense of connection. And gratitude strengthens that connection. It sharpens your awareness. It increases your sensitivity. It keeps your heart aligned instead of hardened. Because it is difficult to remain spiritually aware when you become ungrateful or distracted by what is not happening yet. So you train yourself to remember. Not just the big moments, but the small ones, the quiet protections, the subtle redirections, the unexpected help, the peace that came when it should not have, the strength that showed up when you felt weak. And as you remember, your trust grows. Now let me take you one step further. There is a level of authority that comes with alignment. Not loud authority, not aggressive control, but quiet confidence, a steadiness that cannot be easily shaken. Because when you begin to live with awareness of divine support, fear starts to lose its influence over your decisions. You stop hesitating in places where you are meant to stand firm. You stop shrinking in moments where you are meant to speak with clarity. You stop second-guessing yourself when you have already received direction. And this is where boldness begins to rise. Not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that stands rooted. The kind that moves when it is time to move and remains still when it is time to wait. The kind that does not need validation because it is grounded in something deeper than approval. And as this boldness grows, you begin to walk differently in every area of your life. You carry peace into environments that used to drain you. You maintain clarity in situations that once confused you. You hold your ground in conversations that once intimidated you. Not because everything around you has changed, but because something within you has. Now let me speak to something very important before we close this. You do not need to chase signs. You do not need to force experiences. You do not need to prove anything. Because the more grounded you become, the more natural this awareness becomes. You stop looking for confirmation everywhere because you begin to trust what has already been confirmed within you. And this protects you. It keeps you from becoming distracted by things that look spiritual but lack alignment. It keeps you from chasing validation instead of walking in purpose. It keeps you focused on what truly matters, which is your relationship with God and your willingness to move in obedience when direction is given. Now this is your moment to respond. Not later, not when everything feels perfect, but now, with what you understand. If this message has confirmed something in your spirit, do not keep it to yourself. Share it. Let it reach someone else who needs this clarity. Because sometimes the same way you were guided to receive this is the same way someone else is waiting to receive it through you. And I also want you to do something specific. In the comments, write the sign that has been most consistent in your life. Not just for engagement, but when you declare it, you become more aware of it. And as you continue on your journey, carry this with you. You are not alone. You are not unprotected. You are not moving without guidance. There is help assigned to you daily. There is direction available to you constantly. And there is a purpose unfolding in your life that is being guarded more than you realize. So walk with awareness. Move with intention. Trust what you have been shown and stay aligned. Because the more aligned you become, the clearer everything else will be. And that clarity will carry you exactly where you are meant to be.